On this special edition of VCU InSight, the close race in Virginia's 7th District will play a pivotal role in determining control of the House. Now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, how are abortion rights playing a role in this year's election? And with high early voting numbers, how will turnout be for these 2022 elections? I'm Amaya Howard, and today we're talking about Election 2022. Control of Congress is at stake as Virginians join the rest of the nations heading to the polls. All 435 U.S. House seats are on the ballot. Democrats are currently the majority. Voters in Virginia will elect 11 representatives for the Commonwealth. There are 3 races in the state we're paying extra attention to in the 2nd, 7th, and 10th districts. There are 35 seats up in the Senate. Neither of Virginia's senators is up for re-election this year. One of the biggest races this election takes place in Virginia's 7th congressional district, where Representative Abigail Spanberger is trying to keep her seat. She faces Republican nominee Yesley Vega in a district that changed a lot since the last election. Holden Estes has been following this race.
This is considered to be one of the closest races in the state. The Cook Political Report considers the contest a toss-up. Incumbent Abigail Spanberger has focused her campaign on the economy.
I have been focused on the issue of inflation, which is impacting everyone at the gas pump, at the grocery store, and at the pharmacy counter. And I hear from voters every day about the challenges that they are facing. People are hurting, and the reality is that we have voted for a law to lower the cost of prescription drugs and lower energy bills, but there is much more to do.
The challenger, Yesley Vega, is a law enforcement officer. She's focused on that experience in her campaign.
What we've seen is that you have a party that continues to incentivize crime. And why do I say that? We've seen this across the country where you have prosecutors that are not doing their job, that have prosecuting cases. You see crime is skyrocketing in our communities. And what's the result? Zero consequences.
The 2 candidates have not had a debate, but both have been critical of each other on social media. The 7th District is very different now than when Spanberger was first elected in 2018. It changed as part of the redistricting process and no longer includes many of the counties in the Richmond area.
One thing also that sort of has changed since redistricting is that it's redrawn to include Northern Virginia. And Northern Virginia is super blue, super progressive, super diverse. And so this may actually help Spanberger put her over what she needs to gain that win versus Vega. Even though Vega is from Northern Virginia, she's in Prince William County.
If the race is as close as it's expected to be, we may not have results tonight. For VCU InSight, I'm Holden Estes.
Lots of Virginians are headed to the polls today, but a lot of others have already voted. This year's early voting numbers are in, and they are way up compared to last midterm elections in 2018. According to VPAP, early voting numbers are over doubled what they were back in 2018 before the pandemic. Even still, early voting numbers are down from 2020, which was a presidential election. Political science professor Amanda Winterseek says not to worry too much about the numbers this year.
So it appears that young people have not turned out to vote early in the same rates that they did in 2020. This isn't necessarily a bad thing because we know from the literature that people who vote on election day actually have a stronger sense of civic relationship.
It's just an election reality that not as many voters turn out for midterm elections compared to general elections. Hadia Musfi has a closer look at expected turnout.
Midterm turnout looks a little different this year in Virginia after the expansion of early voting in 2020. But general election turnout in Virginia has historically been higher than midterm elections. You can see the trend of lower turnout in midterm elections and higher turnout in general elections in this chart. Let's zoom in on 2018 when the last midterm elections took place. Almost 60% of registered voters were reported to turn out on election day in Virginia. The 2020 general election saw an even higher turnout with about 75% of registered voters voting on election day.
Negative partisanship in 2016 and 2020 was, of course, really important, and there was backlash to this big national figure. I think the broad question is, how much of an influence will Donald Trump play in this election? Is he motivating his base to turn out to vote? Is he motivating Democrats to turn out to vote against his slate of candidates? We will see, but I think we should certainly expect lower levels of turnout than we saw in 2020.
While midterm turnout this year is still pending, it's on track to surpass the 2018 midterm elections. For VCU InSight, I'm Hadia Musfi.
Of course, plenty of people did get out to the polls today. InSight's Lauren Spires caught up with voters in the 4th District.
Well, voting started here at 6 o'clock a.m. this morning, and poll workers at the ICA say that not many voters have come by yet, but there's still plenty of time to get in that vote. Poll workers arrived this morning at 5 a.m. to set up, and they'll stay until about 7 p.m. Officials say that the goal is to get voters in and out within 10 minutes. Voters check in, giving their name and address, fill out their ballot, and then place it in the machine to be counted. As long as a voter is in line before 7 p.m., they will be allowed to vote.
I came out to vote. I know it's not a contested election and it's not a complicated ballot, but it's important to vote in the midterms.
If you haven't voted yet, make sure to bring a valid ID for check-in, and don't forget to get your sticker on the way out. For VCU InSight, I'm Lauren Spires.
Virginia's 1st District now includes areas that were formerly in its 7th. Reporter Cody Dennis was at the polls this morning to talk to voters.
It's an exciting day in Virginia today, not only because we're electing officials, but also because the congressional districts just got redistricted in this area. What remains to be seen is just how much the suburbs around Richmond will impact this district. The more populated counties of Henrico and Chesterfield were formerly in the 7th District and helped to elect Spanberger in 2020. It will be interesting to see if voters keep that trend and vote blue for their new candidate or stick with the representative the district already has.
If you look at the maps very carefully for these precincts, this precinct was marginalized on every map.
And the 1st District, Representative Rob Whitman is the incumbent. He's held this seat for 15 years, but challengers Herb Jones and David Foster are looking to change that. Only time will tell on the results of this race. For VCU InSight, I'm Cody Dennis.
Another major issue driving voters to the polls, abortion. InSight's Amari Jackson looked into how the issue is weighing on voters at the polls today. Amari?
Since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade this summer, abortion policies have been an even more critical issue to voters. A recent poll from the Kaiser Family Foundation found that 50% of voters say the issue is making them more motivated to vote. When the foundation asked before the Supreme Court ruling whether abortion was a motivating factor, only 13% said it was. So we're definitely seeing it make a comeback as a big election issue. VCU professor Jatia Wrighton says,
and then abortion falls in different levels of importance for each party. So for Democrats, it's usually 1 or 2 of their top issue lists. For Republicans, it's more like 3 or 4.
Midterm elections typically favor the party not in the White House, but political experts say that the abortion issues may give Democrats a little boost in an election where they are the underdogs. For VCU InSight, I'm Amari Jackson.
You can keep up with the election coverage tonight thanks to our partners, Capital News Service. Check them out on Twitter at VCU CNS. For VCU InSight, I'm Amaya Howard.